From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Claire Harvey. It's Monday, December 16. China's economy is in a slump, and that's bad news for Australia. With Jim Chalmers to reveal in Wednesday's mid-year budget update, mining exports are down by $100 billion and company tax revenue has slumped more than $8 billion. That exclusive is live right now at theaustralian.com.au. Olympic stars, including gold medallists Nina Kennedy and Steve Hooker, claim their allegations of abuse by superstar pole vaulting coach Alex Parnov were not properly investigated by sporting authorities. Today, the athletes who say they won't be silent anymore.
This stadium will erupt.
At the 2024 Paris Olympics, pole vaulter Nina Kennedy captivated Australia's imagination.
Yes! Oh, yes! Oh, yes! Wow!
Oh, it was just such an incredible moment.
Well, here she is, Australia, your new golden girl.
Hello, everyone, wake up.
I think we're awake. But are you or are you dreaming?
No, I'm here. I'm a gold medalist. That is so sick.
Jessica Halloran is The Australian's chief sports writer, and she was in Paris when Kennedy jumped 4.9 metres. That's just over 16 feet, about the height of a giraffe.
This sport is insane. It's actually really dangerous. I think the statistics are that at least one person dies a year from competing in this sport. To do it, you have to be completely and utterly mentally focused. And she is brave and she is gritty and she is strong and she is one of the greatest athletic competitors we've ever had. And so that night was a huge moment in Australian sport. We've had an incredible run when it comes to pole vaulters. The previous Olympic champion was Steve Hooker. And both Nina and Steve Hooker at one point in their lives shared the same coach, and that coach is Alex Parnov.
On Saturday, subscribers to theaustralian.com.au saw a video of Alex Parnov, a middle-aged man, and Nina Kennedy, then aged about 19. Standing by a sports field as other athletes train in the background. It's a world junior competition back in 2016. Parnov raises his hand to Nina Kennedy's shoulder and pats her on the back. And then he runs his hand down, lingering on her buttocks.
That video was specifically taken to capture another pole vaulter in action. But what it did at the same time, it caught Alex Parnov inappropriately touching Nina Kennedy. And that became the centre of a complaint in 2016 by coach Paul Burgess, who was an amazing pole vaulter himself. He jumped over the magic 6 metre mark. He competed at the Olympics in 2008. And he saw red on that. He knew it was wrong. And for some time, he had suspected that Alex was behaving inappropriately.
Back then, Parnov was working for the West Australian Institute of Sport. That's part of the network of elite government-funded sporting academies that's had a lot to do with Australia's success in Olympic sports. Paul Burgess went to the WAIS with his concerns.
Alex Parnov just got off with a warning. Nothing was done.
Parnov was a big deal in the world of pole vaulting. Since coaching Tatiana Grigorieva to silver at the 2000 Sydney Olympics, he'd become an integral part of Australia's success in the sport.
He was regarded as the best technical pole vault coach in the world.
In 2019, Alex Parnov suddenly left his job as head of the pole vault program at the WAIS. And at the time, the institute didn't explain exactly what had happened. It just said Parnov had breached his employment contract and that allegations against him had been proven. But it didn't say what they were. What Jess discovered as she started following the thread of this story she's reported with our colleague Stephen Rice was that numerous athletes had been complaining, including Steve Hooker and Nina Kennedy.
What we can see from documents was that Nina Kennedy was raising Alex Parnov's inappropriate behaviour, and that came to a head in 2019 when finally an investigation was commissioned into Alex Parnov's behaviour.
But the investigation was as mysterious as the outcome. Several athletes said they weren't even approached to talk.
Olympic gold medalist Steve Hooker said he complained about not only Alex taking a slice of his earnings, which was against the rules, but he also said he was witness to inappropriate behaviour and had a number of women confide in him that they were inappropriately touched by Alex. But when he got his witness statement back, he was astonished to see that the weight was put on the financial aspect of his complaint, and that complaints around the women were really diminished. That is his account of what he believed was inappropriate behaviour by Alex Parnov. The official WAIS press release said that he had stood down for inappropriate behaviour, but this was very confusing to everybody in 2019 because what was it? Was it the financial skimming of their paychecks, or was it the inappropriate touching, as some have alleged? The investigators didn't get the chance to interview Alex Parnov because he resigned. Nothing was made public about why Alex Parnov left WAIS, and that still angered people, especially Paul Burgess. Now, in this time when Alex leaves, Paul Burgess then steps up and becomes the coach of Nina Kennedy, and he starts to lead her on this incredible trajectory to success. But at the same time, he's really starting to fight with some demons where he feels like the West Australian Institute of Sport really should have done more to protect the athletes, but also to hold Alex Parnov to public account.
Kennedy told Jess and Ricey she believes the WAIS failed to bring to light the seriousness of the alleged misconduct. And she said there weren't adequate repercussions for Parnov. She said, "I don't believe the leadership board had the best interests of my well-being at heart." The Australian has repeatedly asked Alex Parnov to respond to the allegations, but no response has been forthcoming. Coming up, the Instagram star speaking up for the first time. Live at theaustralian.com.au right now is the story of Amanda Bisk. She's a fitness trainer and exercise physiologist. On Instagram, she's got 635,000 followers. But what many of them don't know is that Bisk used to be a promising pole vaulter with Olympic dreams. She alluded to this just recently in a video about confronting her fears.
For years, I was scared to get back into pole vaulting. I told myself it's been too long, I was too old, that I didn't belong anymore.
She competed at the Delhi Commonwealth Games and she was on her way to compete in London. But what she tells us today was that she was subjected to an awful assault at the hands of Alex Parnov, as well as the usual inappropriate touching, the inappropriate comments about her body. She also suffered a horrendous eating disorder where she was ordered to lose weight. And she stands at 178 centimetres, and at one stage she was 48 kilos. It's just extraordinary. So she talks about this just mentally breaking down over the course of her career and feeling like she was left really broken.
Did she attempt to complain to any authorities about him?
No, she never has. And when I spoke to her, she said, if you had have called me last week, I would not have been able to tell my story. And it was only when she read the Weekend Australian's story where we had 7 on-the-record statements or full accounts of what these women had gone through when they were coached by Alex Parnov and the devastating effect it had on them, that it's only when she read that she felt like she had the strength to tell her story. And as she said to me, I hadn't told a soul, not even my mum or my partner, until now.
I'm doing something I love again, and the fear has now turned into passion. If there's something you've been putting off, just start. I promise showing up for yourself is always worth it.
The allegations against Parnov include sexually touching young athletes, inviting them to his hotel room where he'd be wearing nothing but a towel, asking to get into bed with them. All this from someone they'd worked with since adolescence.
A lot of them have used the word groomed. A lot of them tell stories about him telling them that he's in love with them. Some people say to me, it all feels a bit innocuous at the time, but when you put it all together and then you find yourself in a situation where you're in a hotel room alone with him or an apartment alone with him and he's propositioning you, a lot of them have broken down as they've told their stories.
Parnov also allegedly obsessively critiqued their weight, demanding constant skin fold tests and weigh-ins.
Erin Boxall, who was an athlete in his squad in the early 2000s, says she still suffers an eating disorder to this day. There seems to be a lot of obsession around that. He would often walk up to them and grab their stomachs and say, "You're too fat." And we're talking athletes that weigh 60 kilos and instructed to lose 10 kilos, and so they would. I don't think any woman was missed in that training squad. The skin folds constantly being told to weigh themselves every single day, to tell him how much they weigh in return, and he would say whether that was okay or not.
Where is Alex Parnov now?
Alex Parnov is in Russia. We've attempted to contact him a number of times and we've heard nothing back. We know he has been back in the country in recent times. We know he has met with former Western Australian Institute of Sport leaders in that time, just sharing a friendly coffee. And that has deeply upset a number of people.
In 2023, Nina Kennedy and Paul Burgess went back to the WAIS and asked again for a public explanation about what had happened with Parnov. And after Jess and Ricey's story was published on Saturday, Athletics Australia released a statement acknowledging the Australians' reports of what it described as totally unacceptable and deeply distressing behaviour, and asking anyone with information to come forward. Jess, you've spent a lot of years reporting about oversight and governance in sport. There seems to be a theme that it's lacking. What's your take on the way authorities responded to these allegations?
I think that these organisations have in the past pushed to keep these incidents secret. I think they didn't want any of this out there. I think it's a really big problem for them now.
You can read this investigation by Jessica Halloran and Stephen Rice right now at theaustralian.com.au.